So he says, he's talking to me about, in the beginning, he basically starts by agreeing with me, which was kind of took me off guard, to be honest with you. And we were talking about the idea that you don't need the rabbis to interpret the Bible. Okay. Yeah, and so he was agreeing with that.
Did you just say that?
I know, right? And so we're talking about Exodus 12:49, and this is actually in your show notes, but we're talking about Exodus 12:49, which talks about there shall be one law for the ger, which is the Hebrew word for stranger or sojourner, and for the native born. Okay, and this whole passage is basically expanded and hit even harder in Numbers 15 through 16. Anyway, so this is what our friend on YouTube says to us. He says, you have to admit using Exodus 12 that there are different levels of citizenship in Israel. And just from the outset, I think I should have full disclosure here. I don't accept that. I don't believe that. You don't have different levels of citizenship. I mean, even that concept to us is foreign. Barack Obama is the president of the United States of America, but his citizenship is no more valid than my citizenship. And okay, let's not. Barack Obama's a bad example, because I know that there's a lot of Republican listeners, so a lot of people probably question Barack Obama's birth certificate. Let's take a different example. Who's somebody who's high up? Joe Biden is our vice president, okay? White bread, obviously, born here in America. No question about his birth certificate, right? Joe Biden is the vice president. He has a very powerful position in the United States. However, he is no more a citizen than I am. He doesn't have a higher level of citizenship than I do. I don't think that you can prove that there's different levels of citizenship within the Torah. However, our friend here actually brings up some points that about this theory. He says the highest that is level of citizenship being ger, or the word ger in the Hebrew. Okay, full conversion, and he uses this word full conversion, which is accomplished by physical circumcision. Okay. Wait a
minute.
Yeah.
So does the ger cease being a ger?
Well, and that's the question.
When he converts?
That's a good question, because according to the rabbis, actually I have an excerpt here. I was going to save this. This is from my father's book, Fellow Heirs, Jews and Gentiles Together in the Family of God. And actually, I offered I offered this gentleman a free copy of this book, which he said he would take me up on. I am still waiting for his address. He says, this is my father, page 2 of Fellow Heirs. I don't know how much of this I should read, but I guess a good chunk isn't bad. The primary word used throughout the Tanakh for the foreigner who has joined himself to Israel is the word ger, usually translated foreigner, alien, stranger, or sojourner. As we shall see, the word ger is sometimes coupled with other words to give it greater specificity. Pardon me. A ger is one who because of war, famine, or other factors, has left his own village or tribe and sought refuge in another place in which his right of land ownership and normal citizenship have been curtailed. In the Tanakh, ger is often found contrasted with ezrach, native born, or citizen. Most often in those cases where the Torah enjoins equal treatment of both citizen, native born, and ger, we will study the words ezrach below. It should be noted that the contrasting designations native born, ezrach, and sojourner, ger, in these contexts negate equating the ger with the later rabbinic idea of convert or proselyte. From the rabbinic perspective, a non-Jew who converts through the ritual of the proselyte is no longer considered a foreigner, but is reckoned as native born, as an Israelite in every respect. When he, that is the proselyte, comes up after his mikvah in a ritual bath, he is deemed to be an Israelite in all respects. So if ger designated someone with the status of native born, there would be no reason to continually remind the Israelites that there was one law for the native born and for the sojourner. By definition, the proselyte would be treated in every way like the native born. boom. I mean, I can see my father like dropping the mic and walking away. In other words, you can't. And let's take his statement here and apply it to Exodus 12:49. If the word ger can't mean basically, if we take the idea that after a conversion process, which we're going to talk about later because I reject the idea of this, but if we take the rabbinic idea, which it seems like our friend here is taking, that after a ritual conversion and a circumcision, you're no longer considered a ger, but you're considered a native born, then why in the world would Exodus 12:49, which is talking about eating a sacrificial lamb, and not only a sacrificial lamb, the Passover lamb. And what do you have to do to eat the Passover lamb? You have to be circumcised, right? So according to
that's true for an Israelite male also.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, so it applies to both.
But if a ger is circumcised, if a non-Israeli is circumcised, according to the rabbis, that means he's going through a ritual of conversion, right? And even our friend here, he says a ger, full conversion which is accomplished by the physical circumcision. So in other words, that ger would no longer be called a ger, and Exodus 12:49, which assumes that the person has already been circumcised to eat the Passover lamb, would not need to use that word. It would just say, this is the law for the Israelite, right? Why would it even have to specify that there was a ger? Let's keep going with this gentleman's.
Yeah, the idea of conversion is not in the Bible. It's not a biblical concept.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no word conversion. So conversion is an innovation. It's an innovation that happens post-Maccabean times, and probably I don't know for a fact exclusively, but in at least one stream of Pharisaic.
Okay, but I'm going to ask you to explain the history of the Maccabean revolt and circumcision and how that became the idea of the proselyte here in just a few seconds. But let's keep going with our friends.
I started the clock.
Comments. Okay, so he goes on. Okay, Toshav being the commonwealth without having been physically circumcised.
Where did he get this?
I don't know.
He's just making up definitions for words?
Yeah, I don't know why he would think that Toshav refers to a commonwealth without being physically circumcised.
Yeah, how does he know that that's what that means?
Being born again is circumcision of the heart. Okay. I would agree with that no matter what your ethnicity is.